Our COVID-19 has not only negatively impacted our education system, but has also created an opportunity to relook at how best we tell the story of COVID-19. While two young minds have joined hands and come up with innovative ways to create awareness about the pandemic, they've written a children's novel titled Cory in the Universe, which talks about the pandemic and its effect. The book is written for children between the ages of 9 and 15 years old. Well, to tell us more about how this idea came about, we're joined by former Miss South Africa, Ntandoyenkosi Kunene, and who is the author of Cory in the Universe, and her co-author, Thokozane Dyosini. Good evening to you, ladies. It's a pleasure to have you on News at Prime tonight. Firstly, let's talk about the idea for this book. Ntando, you have a background that is seated in education and you're currently lecturing at Wits University. How did that translate itself to you becoming the author of this book?
So, Kathy, just to make you aware of something, Thokozane is the lecturer in this partnership.
Sure,
but
great,
how Cory...
great.
But how Cory in the Universe was born was when we saw in the whole world when the global pandemic was unfolding and how the children in those countries were coping with the pandemic and the new ways of living. So by the time in March it hit South Africa, we then started writing a book that would possibly help children navigate this very difficult time where they don't know what's happening. The parents are not sure how they're going to explain it because they themselves are not sure what's happening, are not sure what tomorrow holds. So that's how Cory in the Universe was born. It was us just wanting children to better understand what's happening in the world and how and what role they can play as well as children.
Thokozane, it's a difficult message to try and communicate to young children in a way that they can understand. Let's talk about some of the considerations that you had to make.
We feel that it's very important for children to learn through storytelling. And in that, we created this novel that not only speaks to the diversity that is South Africa, but we were very intentional about the manner in which we wrote it. We have 6 different characters from different backgrounds and different socioeconomic statuses. And this speaks to being inclusive within the classroom in South Africa. All our children are so different and we wanted to cater to different needs. We've written this book for children ranging from 9 years to 15 because we feel that there are still some pre-reading skills that could be used for children to learn the story through looking at the pictures. It's got that picture book feel because our illustrations are full page, they're in color, and the characters look like our children in many different ways.
Where are you expecting it to end up? You know, what was the vision behind it?
When Thokozane and I met back in varsity, we met when we were doing our teaching degree. We've always had that dream to always be a part of the education system in terms of what is being taught in our schools. And so we've always worked towards that to see how best could we maybe even be a part that our body of work would be part of a curriculum. And so when this happened for us, we saw an opportunity that possibly this could be included because Cory in the Universe or the coronavirus is not something we're going to talk about now and that's where it ends, but it's a conversation that will be ongoing for possibly the next 5-10 years, where children of 2030 are going to want to find out what happened in 2020 and what were the effects of COVID-19. So really the goal for us is to get to a point where Cory in the Universe is included in the curriculum because we've really tried our best to make sure that it has that educational value, that educational nutrition, to a point where even at the back of the book, we have activities that parents, that teachers, that guardians can use so that they're able to teach their children about the coronavirus. We were very intentional about the wording that we use. We're intentional about the stories that were unfolding, the family backgrounds. So it's such a multidisciplinary book that teachers and guardians can use to teach a variety of subjects.
Of course, one of the other things that you've done, Thokozane, is try and see where the gaps currently in the education system lie and use this as an opportunity to fill some of those gaps.
Definitely, we do see that there is a lack of local content being written within the African continent. And in that, speaking to the context of South Africa specifically, we need more writers who are South African, living in our context and speaking to our children, because we are so unique in so many different ways. And in that, we also decided that we want to make emphasis on how the teacher is such an important resource. We are the resource in the classroom, outside of the classroom, continuously thinking of ways to improve the classroom. To think about a practical example, we are always thinking of how we can use resources at home in the classroom. For instance, you'll find a teacher using maize meal on a piece of paper for fine motor skills and letter formation. And these are just great ideas where teachers have used their agency, just like we have now in creating this book, to fill in the gaps of our challenges and a lack within our education system.
Of course, one of the biggest challenges that's facing the education sector right now, and also for teachers like yourselves, is that engagement, that human-to-human interaction has been incredibly reduced as a result of some of the lockdown restrictions. And, we've moved into a virtual space. How did you accommodate that when it came to this book and where it's available?
So what we have done, we've partnered with really amazing companies. We've partnered with Ethnic Kids, so you can get that book online and it can be delivered at your doorstep. But we've also worked with CNA, where you can walk into a CNA store and you can get the book. So Cory in the Universe is quite accessible. We wanted it that way because we just feel that it's such a great part of the conversation of COVID-19. And I think one of the things we pride ourselves in when it comes to this book is that we are able to talk about very difficult topics, especially that of grief within our children. Right now, many children across the country have lost grandparents, mothers, fathers, friends, you name it. And maybe you'd find that a lot of parents don't know how to have that conversation with their children, to a point that we've dedicated a whole chapter that addresses this very difficult topic for parents, so that they're able to take the book, read it with their children, and just take them along the journey of grief, because it's such an important thing that sometimes you feel that maybe as parents, we don't want to have that difficult conversation. We'd rather just be something that we say in passing. However, we always need to take our children through their emotions so that they better understand what's happening in the world.
Thokozane, I can hear some parents at home immediately saying that they hope this is the first of many.
Oh, we are so excited to start creating more and more books. We feel that it's so important to bring cultural capital to life, not only in the classroom, but also in children's literature. As Ntando had also mentioned, we're very passionate about philosophy for children. So we want to write about many more topics that are relevant to our context and to our continent in general. We want to write books that our children can authentically relate to. And we want to encourage more young teachers to write, because it's so important to fill the space and to fill the gap in the education sector with content that is local, that is authentic, and that is rich in value, that is educational to the type of children that we have and the type of teachers that we have in our education system as well.
You're raising the issue of teachers being central to development for a second time now, Thokozane, and I just want to know, perhaps from both of you, what has been the experience of being trained in the education sector and your contribution right now? How have those interlinked?
It's very difficult for us to have an idea of what the classroom is going to be like when we actually start teaching. I feel like the perception that we have as student teachers, even when we go into teaching prac, is very minimalistic to what we actually need to do when we are trained professionals. And in that, it's been such a challenge in transitioning from becoming a teacher to being a teacher, because what we want to do in the classroom in terms of bringing our passion, our methodology, our skills, and our pedagogy is just so difficult when we are plagued with classroom sizes of 60 kids all at the same time, as well as not having enough resources and not having enough human capital in the form of a teacher's assistant to help the teacher teach and foster learning within the classroom context. So in that, it's been very eye-opening now, being on the other end as a lecturer, to see how I can better support my student teachers in understanding the importance of understanding that we're coming into a diverse and a multicultural and multilingual classroom within the South African context. So we have to try best prepare them as much as we can. And also this speaks to Cory in the universe that is now written in all 11 official languages. It's very hard to foster these conversations when we ourselves don't speak all 11 languages as a teacher. But when we have resources, we can then use learners as resources as well, where they can read to each other and start those conversations. Ntando?
Yeah, I wanted to add that obviously with COVID-19 having impacted the profession as well, I've seen in my circles and on social media as well, how teachers have really stepped up to try find ways in which they can assist their students and find innovative ways they can still contribute to the education sector. You find more teachers now are going into tutoring, which is really amazing to see that we are stepping out and coming forth. And also when it comes to creating resources, which is something that Thokozane and myself are very passionate about, to constantly, as a teacher, you never switch off your resource mind, because everything around you is used as a resource. Every experience is a resource. And so even with Cory in the universe, it came about as a resource. There are other things that happen in society where as teachers, we constantly need to draw and take back into the classroom to say, how could I possibly use what's happening in my environment to better teach the content to my learners that come from different backgrounds? It's so important to teach our children from a cultural capital point of view, where they are able to relate to the content.
All right, unfortunately, we seem to have lost that connection, but we certainly wish the authors all of the very best. Former Miss South Africa Ntandoyenkosi Kunene and Cory in the Universe co-author Thokozane Dyosini.